a podcast to honor the gods.
This better come with a sacrifice.
Deus Ex Media.
Hello and welcome to Content and Capable, a podcast all about following your passions while still feeling like a proper adult. My name's Sam and I'm your host.
This week I spoke to Caitlin from the Bechdel cast all about her work on the Bechdel cast and her experience in comedy and TV shows and movies and a whole bunch of other cool things.
Welcome to Content and Capable, Caitlin. It's lovely to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. I am delighted to be here.
For the listener who may not be aware of the inner machinations of my brain at this point, because I swear the amount I overshare on here, I think I get to the point where I'm like, people know how I think, right? I'm getting to the end of like my Uber organization spree where like I messaged a whole bunch of people and like organized a whole bunch of like recording sessions. And so I have all these like a month's worth of backlog ready to be edited, ready to go.
Right on.
And it's like scary because I'm like, I'm getting complacent now, but also like, this is amazing. I don't have to think about, you know, all of these episodes that I need to organize because I already have a month and I can spend a month, you know, organizing the next set.
Isn't that the best? And also
it is amazing.
The worst, yeah.
It's terrifying because like you get to the end of like, and like I'm getting towards the end of the year, I take my break because I'm Australian based. I take my break through the end of December and all of January. Mm-hmm. And I like...
Right, because that's summer for you.
Yeah, it is.
I still cannot wrap my head around that.
Yeah. And the worst part is because there are so many holidays through that time, like especially with Christmas and New Year's. Mm-hmm. And then I don't like sending any official emails until like the 15th of January, like when people really start coming back from their holidays.
Right.
It really is really annoying because you like, I could definitely like, with my American audience, definitely be speaking to a lot more people from the States. But even then, I don't want to be like I feel like I still don't understand like the whole return to work straight after New Year's. Like it definitely takes me 2 weeks to recover from New Year's. So yeah,
I mean,
very
same.
strange.
And it's not even summer. Well, I live in LA, so it's endless summer.
Endless summer. Amazing.
Yes. Love it.
I love that. Yes. Caitlin, for those who might not recognize your voice, who are you and where might people recognize you?
Well, if you don't recognize me, how dare you?
Cancelled.
Canceled, executed. No, that was a horrible thing to say. Okay, let me start over. I am Caitlin Durante. I am a comedian. I do stand-up and I host a podcast called The Bechdel Cast with my dear friend Jamie Loftus, and we analyze movies through an intersectional feminist lens. And that's pretty much all the major things.
And for... I'm guessing you've told this story so many times, being such an influential, famous person. Where did the idea for the Bechdel cast come from?
So it was shortly after I moved to LA, which I guess was, oh my gosh. You know what is wild? Today might be my 8-year LA anniversary. It's either today or tomorrow. It's tomorrow.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, wow, what a celebratory moment for me this week. But so I moved to LA around 8 years ago, and as soon as I got here, I was like, well, it's illegal for me as a comedian to not have a podcast, so I better do something about that. And I just kind of racked my brain and was like, what do I know anything about? What could I speak with any kind of authority on? And the only thing that I could figure out was movies. So I was like, well, I'll have a movie podcast. What else? But what else? And I love feminism. So brave of me to admit. And I was like, well, what if I kind of did a sort of a feminist, examining movies through a feminist lens? That is not something that I mean, obviously there are many critics and reviewers and things like that, but I don't the kind of podcast market for that had been a little untapped at that point. So I was like, well, I'll just do that. Also, I guess this was like 2 years after I moved to LA. My timeline is, I don't even.
Oh, but like it takes 2 years to go from like, I need a podcast through to let's create, and here's a fully formed idea for a
having
podcast.
One. Exactly. Because I was like, oh, the podcast has only been on for about 6 years. Anyway, I was just like, this feels like something that hasn't really been done to a great extent, at least. So why not combine my two biggest passions, movies and intersectional feminism, and turn it into one podcast. So that's kind of where the idea just came from. A need to have my voice be heard as a comedian with issues needing to constantly be validated. And then I reached out to Jamie and I was like, hey, do you want to do this with me? I feel like you'd be like the perfect co-host for this, and that we'd like have a swell time. She's like, I'm so down, and the rest is history.
Amazing. That's so fascinating. It's like the whole, especially like 6 years ago, where podcasting was just the thing that was blowing up at that point in time, and there was still like that weird level of inaccessibility. You didn't have, every second person creating a podcast out of their bedroom,
right. It was like gearing up to that at that point, but like not quite there.
We had in the pandemic, and I do reference this, an inordinate amount of time for someone who creates a podcast, but we did have a campaign right in the middle of the pandemic from our national broadcaster, so the ABC, publicly funded, that was literally don't create a podcast. The whole message was don't create a podcast, which I think it was like a subtle ad for the ABC creates some amazing podcasts. It's actually part of what got me into podcasts. And the other part of it, I think, was just like, we need something to make people laugh. Like this is just like a funny thing, a funny haha.
But also good advice. Don't create a podcast.
It is very good advice. I think don't create a podcast unless you've really thought it through. And if you think you've thought it through, wait 6 months.
Yep.
And, it's hard. Podcasting is not an easy thing, and it's hard to maintain a level of energy, especially when, you might be not achieving what you thought your podcast could.
Sure.
And you might feel like I often find when I commit to a creative endeavor, I've stuck myself in a niche somewhere, and it's very hard to kind of escape that and evolve, especially as media evolves over and over again as well. It's been very interesting to watch, especially podcasts in the same kind of subgenre as you guys of analyzing movies and having a chat about movies, and how hard it's been for people to kind of evolve with the times, I found.
Sure. Yeah. It is a struggle because you're always because part of you is well, I need to stay on brand. And a lot of people think that means just sort of committing to a bit that you can never evolve from, which, might work for some shows, but didn't and wouldn't work for the Bechdel cast, at least, because the discourse is always changing, progress is always being made, we are becoming aware of more and more things and kind of more and more societal ills. So we're always, or at least I hope we are always growing and changing and evolving with the times.
There is that weird part of podcasting as well where it is chaos, and it's oh wow, we're watching this, and it's entertaining to watch. And I don't know, as long as people feel healthy creating it, I don't see a problem with it. And I think it's really amazing to watch podcasters take either a really quite manicured approach or here's everything, here's the bombshell of a room, and we're just going to exist in here.
Yeah, it's tricky because when you're recording a podcast, I mean, I guess it depends on the show, but in a lot of cases, you're just sort of speaking off the cuff. You don't know what you're going to say until you're saying it. And sometimes, like, I mean, I definitely misspeak on the show, and then I either have to, like, take something back, like, you know, take it back, or just, like, or it just takes me a while to figure out what my point is, and then I've rambled for 2 minutes, and then I'm like, oh, and here's my point, and then I have to be like, well, all this other stuff was useless. So, I mean, I edit the podcast, and there's so much that I'm like, well, this doesn't need to be listened to by anybody. I will just cut this out of
all
things
the time
that I've said. But yeah, it's tricky. So, bottom line, editing, good for me at least.
Always good. I always appreciate editing so much more when I listen back to the before and after, or like have the other thing that like I've been asked to do recently is like listen to some of my early episodes and listen to like my most recent episodes. And while my editing process has changed, I don't think I'm editing any more or less from it. I'm just being like selecting different things that I'm like, I'm actually going to remove that section instead of this. Which is always very fascinating. Yeah. And when comedy's involved, I think it's also like a very interesting insight into like the way people view comedic timing and the individual like tastes in comedy, which I'm sure is something over your last 8 years in LA you would have definitely experienced. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I can't even listen to or like watch videos of my stand-up from like 8 years ago, because I'm like, why were those the things that I thought I should be saying? Not that other things have aged horribly, such as most movies, but I'm still just like, oh yikes, like would not vouch for me as a comedian 8 years ago.
Yeah. It is fascinating to watch people's craft develop as well. I don't know. Like, how long have you been creating comedy for?
I started stand-up like 14 years ago. And to be fair to myself, I've never said anything like wildly problematic. I mean, I've seen open micers like yesterday go on stage and like spew a bunch of hate speech, basically like saying all this like transphobic and racist and sexist and, you know, you name it, rhetoric and then like pretending like it's comedy. I never did anything like that, but I would still just kind of like, I don't know, just like focus on things or say things that I wouldn't, and I'm not doing today. But yeah, I've been doing comedy for about 14 years, and my style hasn't changed that much. It's more just like the specific nature of the content that I'm choosing to talk about has evolved over the years.
Yeah. And I don't know, like, especially with the Bechdel cast and, you know, having been worked on that for a very long time, like, has that informed the way that you might write comedy now as compared to the way that you wrote comedy in the past?
For sure. Although I've been absolutely slacking as a stand-up comic, and especially in regards to writing new material for a while now. I mean, the pandemic made it hard for me. I mean, a lot of people were like, oh, what a great time to write a whole bunch of new material. And for me, I was like, what a great time to be depressed and sleep all the time. So that was my path. But yeah, it's definitely kind of informed my joke writing and just sort of like my overall comedic sensibilities, for sure. Because so much of comedy, whether it's been in movies, in sketch comedy, in stand-up, like whatever the medium, has relied on punching down. Which again is something I've never done. Because it just never felt right to me, and and now you watch, like, I don't know, just a movie from 1999, like a comedy from the 90s or early 2000s, or, you know, listen to someone's stand-up special from 15 years ago. And so much of what people find acceptable to to be comedy, or what people perceive as comedic is punching down, usually to marginalized people. So I don't even know what my point is with this. Basically that, like, and of course not all comedy. I mean, there's a lot of comedy that ages well because it doesn't rely on punching down. But any comedy that has that, like, sort of the crux of the joke was like, oh, I'm going to make fun of this trans person, or I'm going to make fun of this queer person, or, you know, whatever it is, or just like bash on women. We watch that now and we're like, oops-a-daisy. Yes, that is what we all thought was funny in, you know, 20 years ago. But through our kind of modern lens, doesn't hold up.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's where, and I think that the appreciation for British comedy, but even as an extension, Australian comedy, I was, of all things, I was watching an analysis on RuPaul's Drag Race Down Under this morning on TikTok, and they were talking about how having Australian judges who understand Australian culture and Australian comedy would have made the experience, the watching experience better, and people would have, like, enjoyed it more. Into this whole conversation of, like, what drag influences would you have on to kind of judge, you know, a competition like RuPaul's Drag Race. But it really, like, reminded me that, like, Australian and UK comedy is very much dry and often self-deprecating, and it seems to last way longer than what I find, like the Family Guy and the Simpsons of the world, where you seem to be punching down instead of, you know, either punching across or upwards.
Right. Yes. If there was more, like, class satire in American comedy, we probably wouldn't be having this problem. But what Americans thought was funny was shit like American Pie and like Adam Sandler movies and like, oh God, I don't even know what else. Dumb and Dumber. Yeah. And before anyone like drops into my mentions being like, Dumb and Dumber is the funniest movie ever made, I'm just
I don't disagree that there might be parts of Dumb and Dumber that people find hilarious. The thing about comedy, and I think the beauty in like all creative pursuits, is that you have different tastes, and so you know, we might feel uncomfortable, you know, with Dumb and Dumber as like a conceptually funny thing, but on the other hand, like we don't like. That's our opinion. It's not someone like, you don't have to have that opinion. We're not saying people have to. All
I ever say is love whatever you want to love, but just be critical about the media you consume. And then I give a little like wink.
That I think is the perfect like summary of exactly what like a successful analysis on media looks like. If I think to, you know, some of my favorite media analysis podcasts, you know, everything from Mary Clay on that one, That's What I'm Talking About, and her like critical analysis while still really enjoying the books, or Christina on, you know, the restricted section going, hey, you know, we understand that, you know, Harry Potter is not the greatest thing, but this is why it has longevity, and let's discuss, you know, what we think about it. And then, you know, especially your podcast almost seems purpose made for this, where it's like, let's have a look at this through a critical lens and then have a discussion about, you know, why we enjoyed it and what we thought about it in the context of, you know, especially the Bechdel test.
Yeah. So you're welcome, everybody. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. Caitlin solved podcasting. We don't need to worry about it anymore. It's all fixed.
Yeah. And again, you don't start a podcast. No one needs to start any new podcast because I cracked the code.
Yeah. That's it. No more podcasts. They're all banned. But yeah, it is very fascinating. And I think we're seeing a very interesting analysis now and a bit of self-reflection beyond the pandemic, when everyone, like, there was like a second wave of like people creating podcasts. And so there's a bit of self-reflection of, is this podcast going in the direction that the creators want it to go in, but the way that the audience and media is going in as well. It's very fascinating. And I think the long form format of, podcasts between 20 minutes and an hour is going to really change over the next few years as we kind of reset what we find valuable and not as valuable.
What do you think it's going to be like in the future?
Ooh, I think that I've had this conversation with some other creators on the Deus Ex Media Network. I think a lot of it is going to be understanding where a bit ends and moving on, or not even just a bit, like a topic as well, and being able to keep a higher pace, because with the rise of short form media like TikTok and the shortening of tweets and things like that, we are getting to a point where our attention spans aren't great, but we can still concentrate for like an hour or two if we are moving in a direction that is like fast enough. And there will be a time and a place for really slow content, but I think that we'll have higher pace, higher volume of content in podcasts that stick in that 20 minutes to an hour plus kind of range.
This is kind of off topic, but also on topic. Have you noticed that every movie that has come out in the past year-ish, year and a half, has been nearly 3 hours long?
Yeah.
Movies are getting too long. You would think that they would be getting shorter because of these, everyone's attention span and so much of the content that is put out are much shorter form things. I don't know if this is like Hollywood being like, well, okay, all you Gen Zs who, with your TikToks, well, we're going to double down on movies and make them twice as long as they used to be. as like, I don't know, out of spite or something. Not sure. But like, I just remember seeing the runtimes for like all the movies that came out in a single month. It was like, I don't remember the timeline exactly here, but like the Batman was 3 hours long. The Bond movie that came out, I want to say like last fall or summer or whatever, was like 2, or when did that come out? Oh my gosh, I don't even remember. Time doesn't exist anymore, but that was like 2 hours and like 47 minutes. Like every movie recently has been so long, and I get very frustrated because I get really restless. I guess I'm part of the problem. My attention span is too short, but also I get annoyed because there's no reason these movies need to be that long. No,
yeah. Like we've really shown in Hollywood that we can write short and long form content and write really good stuff, both, a 90-minute movie being really, really well done and a 3-hour movie being really well done. Like we've definitely shown that we can do those things. But like, I think what really triggered it for me was when Avengers Endgame was like 3 and a bit hours. And the conversations we ended up having, I was in school at the time, the conversations we ended up having of like, we can't just go and watch it normally, because if we went to go watch it at 6 o'clock, we'd be there till like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night.
Right.
And, that's really late for like a school night. I had a friend of mine who went and saw it in the morning and rocked up to school at like midday. He's like, yeah, I went and like saw the first showing of the day and rocked up to school at midday. We were in year 12. It became a lawless society very quickly at my school. People did not turn up to many classes. But, it was like, I'm like, you've been away for a long time. But he's like, yeah, that's how long the movie goes for. I'm like, but I think on the flip end, and I think this is the very fascinating part, and I think we're going to see, maybe this is the way Hollywood is shifting, is the rise of TV shows to tell longer stories with more characterization, but in shorter pieces.
Shorter bursts. Yeah. I am fine with that.
I can't stop thinking about the TV series Ms. Marvel at the moment. I don't know why. It just keeps coming up. But like that told, like if we look at the story of Encanto as a movie, and some of the big key points that Disney kind of wanted to hit with that movie, and obviously it's showing Colombian culture and Miss Marvel's showing Pakistani culture, but you know the beats that were hit in Encanto and the complaints that a lot of people had about the way it handled generational trauma and some of the pacing issues, and then you have a look at Marvel, which is also Disney's work, and their approach to generational trauma and the pacing of that show and the ability to spend time watching characters to develop and change and having a really satisfying ending to a story as compared to trying to stuff, 3 hours full of everything with all the nuances. Because let's be honest, movies are very shallow.
How dare you? No, I'm kidding. Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like in some movies can tackle a very, a nuanced, complex topic and do it effectively, but it's usually like, all right, you get one thing that you can tackle and that's the narrative. Because I've seen plenty of movies that it's like, the movie bites off more than it can chew.
Yeah.
And then you end up with, everything ends up being kind of like half-baked, and it's like, well, the intent was there, but the execution wasn't great because you stuffed like 5 hours worth of narrative into a 2-hour movie, and it just didn't really hit the mark. So yeah, I like this. But the trouble with me is that as soon as something is a TV show, I'm like, ugh, it's so much work to watch it.
Yes. Yeah.
So I just can't commit to I have commitment issues when it comes to watching television. Because with a movie, I'm like, oh, I have 90 minutes. I can, or, I have 120 minutes. I can do this. But I'm like, a TV show, yeah, it's short bursts, but there's a lot of them. Yeah. I get overwhelmed.
I definitely feel you on that one. I also feel like the urgency to watch a TV show is a lot less. Like in our head, we're like, oh, it's on the streaming service. I can just watch it whenever. And just don't watch it. And so we lose that whole, everyone has a collective experience all at once when watching a movie together.
Right.
And walking out of the movies and talking about it.
Totally. I'm like, I don't think that Bullet Train, well, not to dunk on Bullet Train, but it's still in theaters right now, but it's been out for a few weeks and I still haven't seen it yet. And I'm like, I wanted to see it, but it's like, I heard it's not even good, so I don't even care that much about it anymore. But I'm still like, people are like, you haven't seen Bullet Train yet? I mean, not for that movie, but like any movie that's like coming out that it's like the big event. And if I don't see it right away, I feel like a fraud. I'm like, I can't even call myself a film buff, a film lover, because I haven't seen whatever yet.
Oh, that gets me. The whole film buff thing gets me so irate all the time. Like, please stop defining, how much of a fan of movies someone is by the amount of movies or how frequently they watch movies. Like, just that's... But I had the same thing with Everything Everywhere All at Once, where I had... my friends love it. I just have not gotten around to seeing it. And I feel incredibly guilty because I'm like, I know that this is going to be something that I really enjoy when I end up watching it.
Good.
But like I haven't gotten around to. And I'm like mildly terrified that I've like missed the collective experience boat. But at the same time, I'm like sitting here going, I have like 3 months left of university. Full stop. I have like, I just came back from the US, a whole bunch of other bits and pieces. And so like, I'm sitting here going, can I, how does this work? Like, someone explain, please. And it's fascinating. I really love it.
You can watch it whenever you have the time. And
the other thing,
the permission I give to you.
Yeah. The other thing is like, with podcasts that I like have ads in it that I listen to, a lot of the ones here in Australia took like about Amazon Prime Video. And it's the one streaming service that I like mildly refuse to get because it's just like, I don't necessarily want to be giving Mr. Bezos money.
Fair.
And, well, I'm really lucky in Australia that like we are so backwards that like Amazon Prime Video is not a big thing. And like we will go to your Netflixes and your Disney Pluses well before we head to Amazon Prime Video. You know, Apple TV and Amazon Prime have just not made it as well here. And so they know that the two Australian homegrown streaming platforms, so Stan and Binge, which Binge is like HBO Max, but with Foxtel. I'm not sure how that works, but it does. Then Netflix and Disney. And then we've got our national broadcaster has a streaming service as well. It's like, that's where most of the content is. There's no Hulu. There's no like 7,000 other streaming services. And
Dude,
that's where all the content. Yeah.
I have subscriptions to every damn one. And I'm just throwing away money every month because I'm just like, well, I didn't watch anything on Shudder again. I didn't open Paramount Plus again. So
I've had Paramount Plus for, I want to say, 6 months. Objectively, the worst streaming service I've ever used. The only reason I have it is to watch Avatar: The Last Airbender because they took it off Netflix and everyone was upset. And when I first downloaded Paramount Plus, it would not let me watch content. It would barely let me download content, and it would download it, but then I would be, and Disney Plus does this too, actually. I'll download something, and then I'll be on like my mobile data, and mobile data is disabled on all my streaming apps. And it wouldn't let me play it because it's like, it needs like a little nugget of data for some reason. Like, please, I don't want to be, using data to watch things I've downloaded on my phone. The point of downloading it is to not use data. Anyway, it's incredibly frustrating to sit there and go, well, I actually want to catch up on these movies that I haven't seen and not be able to, especially when sharing the content that we consume is such a huge part of our lives.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of it's the tools in your toolbox as a content creator. You kind of need access to all these movies, and if they're not available, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, 100%. And it is like really important, like that we have spaces for people to just express how it impacts their communities. I think especially, and I think the Bechdel cast was like a really core tenet in getting people to do this. But for BIPOC creators, for Indigenous creators, for women in general, but then also for like LGBT people, and looking at how media interacts with so many communities, and what the impact they have on people is so fascinating.
Yeah, it's something that I think about a lot, that we talk about a lot on the show, and that I hope just continues to have like more of a more of a platform for like people to like just, first of all, like be aware of how media kind of affects and influences our thinking and kind of reinforces or challenges our biases. And that also just, and you're seeing it more and more, and there's always room for more, but just like, that there is more content, out there from creators who are people of color, who are queer, who are disabled, who are women, just I think people are finally like waking up to the fact that like, oh, it actually is not only like good for society and progress, but also like a financially good decision, which is what drives and motivates the entertainment industry. But it's financially responsible because it's like, yeah, people have been wanting this for years. There are there are many people in these communities and people outside of these communities who still just want to watch something that is not exactly reflective of their own experience. They want to learn and just like consume content from anybody and everybody. So yeah, that's like one of the main goals of the Bechdel cast, which is just to kind of spotlight media that is not made by cis white dudes.
It is so chaos is, I go and record a podcast and somehow every group chat that I have engaged with in like the last 24 hours suddenly reemerges its head and everyone is online. And so like I have my notifications silenced, but then like I will like swipe away to check the Audacity or something, and it just But yeah, showcasing creators who don't get an opportunity. We talk about this in Australian media as well all the time. My friend Damien, I think, made the comment when he was on the podcast where like creating content that you see in yourself, whether it is region or identity or community specific, is really, really important. And I think it really then increases investment in viewing other content as well. And for the straight white man who hosts a podcast, i.e. me, it really gives me an opportunity to experience these cultures and understand the complexities of these cultures that often is not communicated outside of a history classroom. And let's just say history education isn't necessarily the greatest funded part of our education system, which is just incredibly underfunded in general. So,
well, it's like, I would always say this about like comedy lineups, like a lineup on a stand-up show that I would be booked on, and it would be like me. And then, and this, it all depends. It's all relative. But like, let's say, for example, I used to live in Boston, and I would get booked on a comedy show there, and the lineup would be 7 white dudes, and then me, a white femme woman person. And it just behooves everybody to diversify a lineup, a slate of shows on a network, the movies that are in, because what would happen, and this is sort of like a micro example, but like to use the stand-up comedy show, it would be, 7 white dudes, and they'd all have like a dick joke, and they would probably all be pretty similar, or they'd all have a joke about like online dating. And because they're coming from like pretty similar perspectives and similar backgrounds, like they're all basically kind of saying the same thing. It's just like 7 sets over and over again. And then like my set, which is also just like, I'm also talking about online dating. Yeah. But like, it just behooves you to, it just is going to make the show more interesting for the audience if it's more diverse. And it's just going to be better for all the comics, because it's like, oh fuck, like this comic right before me told basically the same joke that I have. Joke, yeah. So it just works better for everyone involved if you just make it a point and to diversify the content.
I think it's also the sign of a good comic of like A, the people you collaborate with, but B, the content that you end up talking about. Yes, you might be a straight white male with a very similar experience to everyone else, but if you choose to focus on, something that straight white men don't necessarily talk about, or maybe not feel comfortable talking about, but you are quite knowledgeable. For example, and I see this with like Australian and New Zealand comics all the time. They definitely talk about like interacting with tourists, and you don't necessally. And Americans are notorious for being bad tourists, like just internationally. But you don't necessarily. But you don't necessarily like talk about that kind of thing if you weren't and I also see other comics using the audience way more and doing really interesting things with comedy. It doesn't mean that straight white men don't have a place in comedy, but what I would love to see is. And of all things, Lucas Arnold, who's like on TikTok, he does a really, really great job of collaborating with like colleagues who are are outside of the gender binary, who are female, who are, Black, Indigenous, people of color, and especially his roast battles where like they're roasting each other and you get to hear the culture in like the way that they construct, critique of each other, or the way that, the way that you interact with each other. And just even the presence of someone who doesn't fit into like the successful white businessman makes things more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I'll have to check. Wait, what was this person's name again? I'll check.
His name's Lucas Arnold.
Lucas Arnold.
I'll send you a link to his stuff.
Nice.
It's very interesting. Like, it was just like one of the examples that I could pull out of the back of my head. There are other comedians. There's been a rise in Australian comedians recently, and one of the ones that I'm really enjoying watching at the moment, he like didn't finish high school, and has made it really, really quite successfully, creating both online content and being a traditional comedian as well. But like, it's talking about, the stories that you have is when you tell someone that, you didn't finish high school or something. And it's always fascinating to hear people with unique perspectives. I could probably talk forever about, my experience as the child of a military personnel. And I always find that, jokes around that are often going to be way more engaging, way more interesting. People are going to find those way more funny than a joke about, being at a bar, because my experience in the bar is something that is been overrepresented.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know, so fascinating. We've gone deep here. So as as the Bechdel cast was, plodding along, and you guys doing your amazing work as always.
Oh, thank you.
What were some of the like adaptations and adjustments that you kind of decided to make as you went along, for whatever reason, not even just, to keep it, to keep the podcast relevant or anything?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely, as the show went on, we just made it a point to be more and more intersectional and inclusive in our analysis. Because for the first, a couple years, we were focusing more on just the treatment of women. And we were taking other things into consideration, such as race, class, sexuality, etc. But it was still kind of a focus on how does this movie represent women? And we just, reached a point where that's just not quite enough, for at least for what we want to be and what we want to actually be doing as far as our analysis goes. We want to make it as inclusive as possible and for all kind of perspectives and, identities and backgrounds to be a part of this analysis. So we just made sure to, broaden our horizons, I suppose, which included doing more research, bringing on, making sure to bring on guests who had the perspectives of the that we wanted to learn about and share with our audience. And at a certain point, we were just so for listeners of your podcast who aren't familiar with the Bechdel cast, we do something called the nipple scale. So we rate the movie at the end of the episode on the amazing, brilliant, genius nipple scale, which is basically just how does the movie fare? How feminist or how kind of empowering, I suppose, is this movie on a scale of 0 to 5? Most movies get 0 nipples, 1 nipple, maybe 2. If it gets 2.5 or more, we're okay, now we're cooking. But even only probably 2 years ago, we switched sort of the nipple scale from how well does this movie represent women to like how well does the movie do when examining excuse me, someone is loud outside. How well does the movie do when examining it through an intersectional feminist lens, which, you know, allows us to take so much more into consideration. So yeah, it's that. It's honestly, I don't even remember to pay attention to if the movie passes the Bechdel test or not. I don't even care anymore.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's interesting that we have like these quote unquote simple tests that should, you know, obviously the Bechdel test is, you know, part of the categorization, I'm in my head at least, of these, what's supposed to be simple. But like the more you examine, the more complex it gets of like, is this a good yes? Or is this like a strong yes? Or is this like an okay yes? Of does it pass? And so then it becomes more of that conversation of like how to do better than, you know, a binary yes or no.
right. That plus like, I just, as we often like come up against on the podcast, a movie can pass the Bechdel test and still be like sexist trash, or it might not pass for whatever reason, but still be like a pretty solid movie that like it at least isn't problematic. It might, you know, not be the most empowering piece of media, but like it's just and as we've always said, it's just a jumping off point. It's just a way to kind of get a conversation started about kind of just inclusion and representation. It was never intended to be like the end all be all like media test. And so because of that, it's just hard to, it's hard for me to.
It is so hard.
Pay attention. Especially because like we only spend maybe 3 to 5 minutes talking about whether or not a movie passes the Bechdel test, and the rest of the episode, speaking of things being too long, all of our episodes.
I think we all do it. I had a podcast recording the other day go for like getting close to an hour and a half, and I'm like, this is dangerous because I'm relatively light on the editing, but wow, this is dangerous length.
Our episodes are sometimes longer than the movies, embarrassingly. So it'll be like a movie that's like an hour and 50 minutes, and then an episode that's like 2 hours and 15 minutes. Yikes. Yeah. I would just recommend listening to it on like 1.5 speed.
Spotify does 1.2, and I find that other than the music, it doesn't distort that much. I'm actually really enjoying listening on 1.2.
That's my sweet spot as well.
I edit at like almost 2 times speed from time to time when I'm like trying to speed edit, and it is fascinating. I have to concentrate. Like it's the only thing I can concentrate if I'm editing at that speed. But when I'm running late, inevitably, because I can't seem to put an episode out on time ever, it's like the whole, I've got to get through this all, and like, because my edits aren't super technical, it's just like running through it as fast as possible. But yeah, 2 times speed, he's like extremist. I'm sorry. I don't like people who listen to 2 times, but up to 1.5, I really enjoy.
It's doable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, point is, I'm not even sure if I've arrived at a point yet, but, yeah, the show has grown in a way that I feel very proud of, and to the point where like we redid some episodes that we knew we absolutely did not do justice to the discussion on our first go around. So I really like the direction we're headed in.
I really kind of commend that, because it's like this responsible fan management of like, we didn't do a good job, and upon reflection, here's a better version of the thing, you know? Yeah. And I think that's what's amazing about the media creation business, is that like you get a chance to have a re-go at things.
Especially with something as like informal as podcasting.
Yeah.
Where, although, you know, there's all these like director's cuts of movies and stuff, but with a podcast, you're just like, well, we didn't do a good job. Delete, redo.
Oh, far. The amount of times I've especially when I have an update episode, and I don't script my update episodes because I'm terrified if I write stuff down, I'll look at it and never record anything. But the amount of times I'm like, okay, that sounded shit. I'm going to restart the whole thing because, and it's often, an update episode's maximum 10 minutes. And so it's like, oh, wait, okay, I can just re-record this. It's not the end of the world. But yes, it's so fascinating. And I really enjoyed watching creators, it's not just the Bechdel cast, creators go through their catalog and go, could we have done a better job at, not necessarily your job, but could we have done better at what we did?
Sure.
And it's fascinating. So looking towards the future, what kind of aims or dream goals would you have for both the impact and the physical podcast itself?
I would love for everybody in the world to listen.
Billions of streams.
Doable, right? No, I would like for there to be, we have a modest, a decent but still modest sized audience, and I'd love for more people to listen, not just for selfish reasons, but I do feel like we're doing something important and also entertaining. We goof, we laugh, we know how to have fun. But yeah, so everyone listen and then tell your friend. But yeah, I would just love to continue to, broaden our horizons and with every episode, because I'm always reading reviews and pieces that people have written about the movie or a particular trope or trend in media and movies. So always educating myself, always learning, growing as much as possible, and just keep on a trajectory of constant enlightenment and growth.
And personally for you, how has the podcast kind of impacted and changed your day-to-day life and work?
Oh my gosh. Well, I have cultivated a life now with this podcast where my job is to watch movies and then talk about them and then edit those discussions with editing software. But it's my full-time job, but not even full-time hours. And so I'm making a living off of a podcast where I watch and talk about movies. Not something I ever thought I'd be able to do or that I ever would do. But yeah, so I get to live a pretty leisurely life in which I'm doing my favorite thing, which is to watch movies. So that's pretty cool. Should I be using that extra time in my day to, I don't know, write screenplays? No, you're right.
No, you too I always encourage people to rest on their laurels, whether it's a good idea or not, another thing entirely. But my parents get very not upset, just mildly trifled at me for my immediate desire to rest on my laurels as soon as any success comes up. And they're like, really, Sam? You're going to do this again? You know that this hurt last time. I'm like, yeah, but I like it.
Well, in a counter argument to your parents, when someone's on their deathbed and people say, and maybe this is, I don't know, an urban legend or something, but people are like, oh, what do you regret? Or what do you wish you had done more of or less of, reflecting back on your life? And so many people say, I wish I had worked less and spent more time with my family or, just spent more time having fun. So, I don't want to be one of those people. So I try to barely work and just have a really cool, chill, fun time. And the Bechdel cast has let me do that. And I know this is first of all, I sound like a fucking piece of shit saying this, where I'm like, oh, I barely have to work and my life is awesome and I just get to watch movies all the time. I know that is an extremely privileged thing to be able to do. So I'll just period end of
I
sentence.
almost feel like guilty for being successful. Like I'm by no means successful, but like as soon as I do get like I have something that is reasonably successful, I feel guilty for like enjoying the success and enjoying like the, you know, you win an award or, you know, something like that. And you feel guilty for being the person who's like getting the praise. My parents, I turned 21 at the end of the year, and my parents have spent the last like 9 months basically be going, we'll pay for this because it's your 21st. And it's not like everything. They're not paying for everything. And, you know, some of the things are like, actually, no, I can definitely pay for that myself. Like that's not I'm financially independent from my parents. But I had this conversation of like, I feel guilty for like enjoying the fact that like people are celebrating my 21st birthday. I want to like buy things for me.
You know, I have this same exact problem. I'm also about to turn 21 and I feel so... I'm kidding if you can't tell. I'm so much older than that. But no, I have like... I feel guilty about just like earning any money, which maybe is like my like working class upbringing, but because I'm also like a socialist and I'm like eat the rich and like all that stuff. So anytime I like make more money than I spend or need to spend, I'm like, oh, I'm a horrible person. I am a hypocrite. And that's why I donate like hundreds of dollars a month to various nonprofits and like mutual aid organizations and things like that to quell my guilt. Is that the right word? What does quell mean?
Yeah, I think so. Like to reconcile the guilt that, you know, you feel as, you know, that a person in this really privileged situation, which, let's be honest, you and I are both sitting in, you know, really, you know, living relatively comfortable lives. And like, if I think about it too much, all I get is very depressed about the whole, you know, poverty exists and people don't have money kind of, and obviously, you know, there's a part of me that's like, I'm just not going to think about it. But the other part of me is like, I've got to do things to like raise awareness and share and like try to increase recognition so that, you know, I'm not like complicit in the issues that, you know, plague our society.
Yeah, complacency. Wow, that is another word that I didn't say right. Quell, by the way, is a verb. To put an end to, such as a rebellion or other disorder, typically by use of force. So I did not use that word correctly.
Amazing.
I want you to know that I know that.
Yeah. It's just, Anyway, on that, like, amazingly, you know, positive note, thank you so much, Caitlin, for coming on Content and Capable. I've really enjoyed chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been, the pleasure is all mine.
No worries. And where can people find you on the internet?
Oh my goodness. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Caitlin Durante. That is also my TikTok handle, but I famously don't know how to use TikTok. I only have two posts, two talks up there, and they're both Titanic related. So if you're into Titanic content,
we didn't talk about Titanic.
I can't believe it. Nor did we talk about Paddington. Oh my gosh! Talk about not staying on brand. Oh my goodness. So follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Also go watch Titanic. Also go watch Paddington 1 and 2. And
just the best movies. Yeah.
Oh, so much the best. And TikTok if you must, but I don't know how to use it because I am far, far, far older than nearly 21 years old.
Yeah. Quality over quantity, I think. I produce TikToks and I think that they are hot garbage, to be honest. There was like a series that I did was like, I'm going to do like a daily analysis. We had a federal election in May. I was like, I'm going to do a daily analysis on like the headlines that have broke through, you know, at the campaigning for the election. And I was the most inconsistent person ever. I think there was like a week and a half where I just like didn't post anything. I was like, oh, I kind of forgot to do this. This exists. And I had COVID in the middle of it as well, which was...
Oh, no.
Yeah. Fine. Whatever. I don't like to think about the COVID because it reminds me of every time I've been sick this year, which has been a lot.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, no, it's totally fine. It's been a weird year, I think. Obviously working, you know, speaking to a doctor and things like that, but like it's just been weird. Of this all. Anyway, you can find me at sam.the.journalist on Instagram and TikTok, and samobjournalist on Twitter. Actually, the things that I've been getting up to on Twitter recently is I read a very long article about Qantas, our national airline, and I shared it as if it was like some sort of petition. And the other one was my newsroom this morning ran a story about incontinence and public toilets, which we thought was hilarious. And so we're like, we're definitely sharing this on social media because we're never going to regret this in the future. So,
of course not. No.
Never. No regrets ever. No. I really suggest people go and check out Scandal. I know it's on Disney Plus. I think it might be on Hulu, at least in the US. It's just a very interesting TV show. It did make me angry. I've had to stop watching it for a little while because sometimes TV shows rub off on me, like when I watch Gilmore Girls and I start speaking fast like a crazy person.
Yeah. And
there's lots of yelling and arguments in like Scandal. So like I've had to like stop playing it for a little while and just like, I've been getting into too many fights from this TV show. So.
Scandal, the Kerry Washington show?
I think so, yeah.
I'm
bad at names.
Gosh. She's the star, and then the creator is, oh my God, why? Shonda Rhimes.
Shonda Rhimes has written it, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So fascinating. I really enjoyed it. It reminds me of, I haven't actually watched The West Wing, but it gives off West Wing vibes. So,
having barely seen both shows, because I am like strictly a half-hour comedy show person versus I can't get into hour dramas. I don't have the energy, but it is a beloved show, so I endorse your endorsement of it.
It definitely is a good balance between that and yelling at Mako Mermaids, which is the other thing I'm watching at the moment.
Okay.
For a Fandom's Gone Wrong episode where we're just reviewing the whole season, and it's an Australian TV show, and it's really poorly written. It's great. Been yelling at that.
Have you ever seen? I know we're about to end, but I just have one last question. Have you seen Summer Heights High?
Fucking love that show. It is deeply problematic, but like it is amazingly hilarious. And I watched it quite later. Like I think I was about probably 18, 19 when I watched it. But when I watched it, I was like, there's a reason why people love this.
Yeah. It's I haven't honestly consumed that much like Australian television. That's like the big thing that I have seen. And
I suggest if you've seen Summer Heights High, Ja'mie Private School Girls, always a good follow-up series.
Yep, watch that as well.
Ja'mie is just an amazing character.
Yes.
And I can't think of another show for like Australian ridiculousness that isn't deeply like it'd be nice if I had a TV show that wasn't deeply problematic but in that kind of vein. The other thing is Bluey. It's amazing all the time.
All right.
It's 7-minute episodes, so they're like watching like a short YouTube video.
Oh, perfect for me.
And it's on Disney Plus. So the only thing is Disney's censored some things, and Disney being Disney, when it picks up an Australian thing, they don't like farts and pee. Who would have known?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, thank you, Caitlin, so much for coming on the podcast. I've loved having you on. It's been amazing.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Whee! Thank you for listening to Content and Capable. You can follow the podcast socials at Content, the letter N, Capable on Instagram and Twitter.
You can send a super boring email to us through contentandcapablepod@gmail.com. The art was done by Opia. You can follow them on opia_art on Instagram. Opia is spelled OPIA. Feel free to message them about making art for your project. Our music was written, recorded, and edited by Nora Strauss-Reeves. You can find Nora at Kane_I, that's I as in the body part, on Instagram and Twitter. Feel free to message her about making music for your project or editing your podcast.
Coffee, tea, honor, cabbage. Long ago, the four elements lived in harmony. Then, shit went totally cray when the Avatar attacked. Only the Cabbage Man, merchant of fine cruciferous vegetables, could stand against his trolling. But when the world needed some dank veg, he vanished. 10 years have passed, and my partner and I have started a new podcast.
My cabbages! An Avatar podcast.
A weekly show about Avatar The Last Airbender. Whether it's Sokka's new line of cologne.
Hey, look at you, sitting there on a seal. Well, now look back at me. I'm on an even bigger seal. Now look away.
D&D related antics.
You have to make an acrobatics check for that, and Aang just like unzips his pants and whips out his d20s. He's just like, I got this.
Or randomly breaking into song.
Go bending waterfall.
We'll stumble our way through the greatest show ever made, one episode at a time.
You can reach us at CabbageCast, which is our Twitter, or
subscribe wherever you catch pod.
Rotten cabbages? What kind of slum do you think this is?
Content and Capable is a podcast all about answering the question, how do you adult? Don't forget to rate and review it on your favourite podcatcher, and I will see you next Monday for another episode.
Deus Ex Media.